Okay, in this video I want to do a quick overview of nouns. Okay, and as we said before, nouns are naming words. They name things. Okay, and nouns are open, and what that means is that you're free, if you can get enough people to agree on a definition, you're free to make up new words. Okay, and you get enough people to use them and agree on the definition, you can get it in the dictionary. Nouns are lexical. And what that means is that nouns relate to things in the real world. Okay, they relate to, in this case, things in the real world. And the things can be thoughts, they can be concepts, but they're all out there in the real world. The other thing that will become important later as is all nouns are in the third person. So if we use a noun as the subject of a sentence, the verb then has to be a third person verb to agree with it. Okay, now let's have some other characteristics that divide nouns kind of into one or more groups. And the first is number, and this is pretty easy, you think, singular and plural. Okay, and the definition I like to use is singular equals one and plural doesn't equal one. And that may not be the one you've seen before, but I like this one because if you use this rule, it's right more often than it's not. We have a lot of rules that I'll call 95% rules. Almost every rule in English has got some exception, but the better rule is the higher percentage of the time it's correct. And I think this rule for singular and plural is gets you the closest to 100%. Not 100%, but pretty close. Okay, so let's one is a determiner, one car. Okay, but then we would, so over here, this is the easy one, two cars, and then we have no cars. If you've ever stayed all the way to the end of a movie, you've seen that sentence, no animals, plural, were harmed in the making of this movie. So, and then this is a little bit obscure, 1.37 cars. So if we have a fractional amount, this is actually less than one, we still use the plural. So that's why I think singular equals one and plural is not one. Works a little better. So, and again, it's not perfect, but it's a pretty good rule. Okay, now specificity. Okay, let me get that right. Okay, and this one sounds harder than it really is. And we talk about having proper nouns, which are name specific things, and common nouns, which name general things. And every noun is either proper or common, just like every noun is either singular or plural. Okay, at least in English. In some languages, they actually have what's called a dual. So two cars would actually have a different ending than three cars or four cars or five cars. Okay, so proper, let's give just a quick example. Albert Einstein, okay, and common scientist. So Canada country, New York City, Virginia state. Okay, the Virginia and the New York and the Canada are all proper, specific nouns, and the country, city, and state are all common nouns or general nouns. Okay, and I think that one's actually, we have some arguments about when you capitalize things and don't capitalize them, but for the most part, that's a pretty easy concept. Now comes one that's a little bit harder, it's a little bit confusing, and with some justification. Countability. So we talk about words as count or countable and non-count or non-countable. Okay, and let me give myself some room here while I give some examples. Countable nouns have both a singular, from a grammatic standpoint, they have both a singular and a plural form. Okay, so car, car, I don't mean to make these rhyme, star, electron, dog. Okay, and I'm going to throw in one here just to make a point. Sheep. Okay, so these first four form their plural in the regular way. They add an S. Cars, stars, electrons, dogs, and sheep. Now, this is kind of interesting because here, this is the singular and this is the plural. They just happen to be spelled the same. So moose, moose, cod, cod. I'm trying to think some other right now, but even though they're both spelled the same, there is actually a singular and a plural. So they are count nouns. Now, non-countable. Non-countable, what makes a non-countable noun interesting grammatically is that it has a singular or a plural form, but not both. Okay? So let's look at some singular non-countable nouns, or non-count. I guess I should be consistent on both sides there. Okay, so non-count. Now, you'll see it both ways. Countable, non-countable, count, non-count. Means the same thing. So, let's look at some. A lot of grains. Okay. Wheat. Sand, which we don't normally think of as an edible grain, but it's a grain. A lot of fluids. Okay, but also words like knowledge. Knowledge is a non-count noun. And cash. Okay, I don't have cashes. You know, I have $5 in cash, or I have $1 million in cash. Okay, but it's still cash. And then you also have some on the plural side. And here's three fairly common ones. Belongings. It's the stuff that belongs to you. And then, mathematics. And I'm just going to put two down here, mathematics and physics. Okay, but a lot of college courses, university courses, have that S. And then there's another group, and these were all decided. Let's just talk about these first. These were all decided by somebody way back in Anglo-Saxon times as being not able to be counted. Okay, so or that you could keep dividing it up into smaller and smaller bits without stop. And again, this was back in a time when science wasn't as big as it is, or wasn't as developed as it is today. We know some of these things eventually you're going to get down to a grain of wheat or whatever. You're going to get down to atoms and molecules. But and then there's another group that to give a special name to, and this goes way back in the old language, and that's bipartite. And good example are tools like scissors or shears or pliers that consist of two parts. Clothing, especially clothing worn on your legs, so pants, trousers, pajamas, and then things that go on your head. So eyeglasses, earphones, okay, spectacles, binoculars. These things are considered bipartite, and they're always plural. Okay, so you cannot go out and buy a binocular singular. You have to buy both eyepieces. Okay, and the reason this is confusing is, again, this was these divisions came up with a long time ago, hundreds of years ago, and so somebody decided, and I don't know how rich they were, considering that English was the peasant language for so long, the commoner's language, but that they couldn't count their belongings, but they could count the stars in the sky. Okay, so it makes no sense whatsoever. Believe me, my belongings are nowhere close to the number of stars in the sky. The stars are far more uncountable in real life than my belongings are. Okay, or my cash is, for that matter. Okay, so, but those are the conventions that were set up a long time ago. And the reason these are important, these three are important, we could come up with others. We could come up with gender, whether it's male, female, or neuter, neither. Or we could come up with animate or inanimate. But we're not going to worry about those because they don't make any difference in building a sentence. Okay, you're not going to change the way you build a sentence because of the gender or because of whether it's animate or inanimate. Okay, but these do make a difference. And I'll give you just one example. There's a lot of things in there. There's a lot of special things you have to do with non-count nouns. But I will give you just one example of a rule before we stop. And that's that a singular, and car is a good example, a singular, common, count noun has to have a determiner with it. Okay? You would not say, car ran off the road. You would say, the car ran off the road. My car ran off the road. That car ran off the road. A car ran off the road. Okay, you'd have a determiner of some sort in the sentence. And for the first couple sentences we do, we're going to basically use the to kind of be our standard determiner that we use with a singular, common, count noun. Okay, but it doesn't have to be the. It can be any one of the determiners. So that's why these three make a difference. So just to review, nouns, the naming words. It's an open class. You can make up new ones if you can get enough people to agree on the definition. It's lexical. It relates to the real world. Nouns are always in the third person. See, some people will say nouns don't have person, but that's not true. They actually do have a person. It's just always the same. Okay, so third person. They have number. They're singular or plural. All nouns are either singular or plural. Specificity. They are either specific or they're general. And countability just says whether a given word has both singular and plural forms or only one but not the other. Okay, so I want to get this under 15 minutes, and I think I'm right there. So I'll stop here and go make another video.